Okay, I resent the link.
Okay, that's all we can do. We can get started without Ted. I guess, make sure suggestion to make sure that all members of the public are muted for this portion of the meeting. So if we can have a call to order. And welcome to our landowners. Would like to say appreciate that we've been able to get back to where we can have live attendance at meetings. And as always, always since I've been around anyways, the intention is to take landowner questions at the end of the meeting. Second thing I'd like to say as part of the call to order would be happy holidays to everybody. It is that season. It is a unique one this year, but I would like to extend season's greetings to everybody on behalf of the board. The third thing that I'd like to say at the beginning here would be to acknowledge the resignation of Trustee John France, and that we will continue for the remainder of this term with 4 trustees, and would like to thank Trustee France for his interest in serving UBID. The final thing in a call to order would be to rise and report from our in-camera portion of the meeting we just had, where we confirmed 2 motions. The first motion that we confirmed was to approve a new contract for our contract administrative consultant, Gary Nason, and appoint Gary interim administrator for UBID till the end of June, when conversion to CVRD is anticipated. And as a portion of that motion, it was also, well, as a portion of that decision, really, it was also acknowledged that we thank Janice for her service as acting administrator until the end of December, and that Janice has expressed a desire to return to her role as finance manager for Union Bay in January. So all of that was processed. The other thing that we approved was we had some final discussions around an outstanding FOI request that had some sensitivities around privacy. And I would like to report that we have approved the release of an FOI request with respect to information related to the tendering process for the water treatment plant. And that will be released forthwith. And when it is, it will also be published on our website for public consumption. Just turn it back to the board for a second. Anything I missed that we needed to report on, or does that cover it? Okay, so we'll move into the agenda of the meeting then. So the first item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Any questions, thoughts from the board before we move to approve this or adopt it?
Motion to approve.
Second for that.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Ian says yes. Eve says yes.
Yes.
Susanna says yes, and we haven't had Ted join us yet. Okay, second item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our regular board meeting Thursday, November 19th, 2020, which were a part of the package. Any questions, alterations, discussion required of this agenda? Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor? Eve says yes. Susanna?
Yeah.
Ian, yes. Approved. Okay, next item on the agenda will be to have reports from our acting administrator, our fire chief, and our public works superintendent. So let's go in that order. Over to acting administrator Swanson.
You guys have the report. Do you want me to read it?
Does the public have the report?
It's not on the website yet, so no, and mine's very short, so it's going to be when we come to the fire department, you're going to regret that decision.
Well, I think if you just were to make sure you cover the highlights of it, you know, the things that are non-standard, and I know that Ian has some things within his that are fairly standard within his report.
Right.
So I'd ask that each person do those sorts of things.
Okay,
Right, so, yeah.
I can just speak about the referendum election. It worked very well, even with the power outage on November 17th. With Danny and the fire department, we brought enough lighting in to be able to keep it going, because if we were to have canceled it, we have to make up the time somewhere else, and then you have to advertise it. So it went very well. And we, through all of the advance and the election day, we did observe all COVID safety protocols, and it went well. Peter Crawford was happy with the results, how smoothly it went. So onto COVID restrictions, we've had to make some adjustments with the new restrictions. I'm working out of my home office in Comox. Lindsay's in the office. Public Works are having to make adjustments, and Danny can speak to that. And same with the fire department. But we're all sort of moving towards Zoom meetings, and we do team meetings as well. So onto the budget, Graham and I have been working on the budget, and you know, you'll see that today. So that's, oh, and the RBC water treatment plant loan conversion. The docs came up for signature. I signed off on them. Ian Monroe signed off on them. They've gone back. And they're processing them now. So they'll let us know when the first payment date is. And I just say something about returning to my union position for 3 days a week. Yay. As of January 1. That's my report.
Any questions for our acting administrator on her report? Okay, motion to adopt.
Second.
All in favor? Eve says yes, Ian says yes, Susanna's.
Yes. For some reason, I'm frozen. Do you guys see me?
Yeah, we just see a black
Frozen.
screen, so you're gonna have to.
Yeah.
speak.
No,
What?
I see your picture, but you're
We
not
can
moving.
hear you.
Right, but I'm not moving.
No, it's frozen.
Weird.
Move closer to your Wi-Fi access point.
Oh, no. Anyway, okay, as long as you can hear me, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, so sorry, I've lost where we were. My bad.
Approving the minutes.
Right, and there are, sorry, of the administrator's report. Were there any
Right.
further comments or? Okay, so motion to adopt the report.
We just
All in
voted in
I thought we
favor.
just did
Okay,
that.
okay, that's what I said. I lost my
Okay,
train of
yeah,
thought
okay.
when we went through that. My apologies. Okay, and I think that was because we couldn't see Susanna's hand go up. Okay, over to Chief Ham for the Union Bay Fire Rescue November report.
Great, thank you. I'll just peruse it because my report is kind of lengthy, so I'll just hit the highlights. Calls have been down for the month of November, which isn't necessarily a bad thing with all the COVID and everything. Our initiatives, of course, the COVID protocols have taken a significant amount of our time, specifically my time, in dealing with it. The Office of the Fire Commissioner, the Fire Chiefs Association in the Valley here, and all the other departments. The provincial health minister has updated our response to first responder calls instead of just responding to the echo calls, which are the highest level, the most dangerous, life-threatening calls. They've wanted us to include Charlie and Delta calls as well, to try and take some of the burden off of the ambulance service. The recent changes to the protocols from the provincial health officer makes us change the way we operate in the hall. So now masks are required for everybody in the hall all the time. If we're in the hall, there's a medical checklist on the door when you're coming in, so we do temperature checks and things like that. And we have capacity signs around the hall for different offices, like how many members could be in one spot at a time. The Office of the Fire Commissioner, of course, has legislated that we continue to provide service, obviously, and that we have to continue to train. So we do the best we can by smaller groups in different areas if we have to do something face-to-face, or if we can get the training done on Zoom or the Teams application on the internet. That seems to be working pretty well for us. Of course, our sterilization, PPE, everything's going on in the hall that way. We're still waiting on the mutual aid agreement from 19 Wing. It's held up at their commander level. So it'll happen when it happens. The request for proposal for the replacement of engine 25, the committee hasn't really met yet, but I'm hoping that we can meet in probably around the end of January after the new year. We have some presentations arranged from Hub and Fort Garry and things like that to inform the members of the membership, at least, about new equipment, new bells and whistles and things like that. So we had some kind of milestone stuff happening. We've had promotions to lieutenant this month. It'll be in next month's report, but we've had 2 promotions to captain as well. We've had the deputy complete his fire officer 2 training, which is it's quite significant, and he's also waiting on his 25-year medal. I won't go over any of the fire band stuff because that's kind of mute right now. I spoke to the training, the smaller groups. I finally did manage to arrange a first responder course for the new year. It's taken me just about 5 or 6 months to get that to happen. With COVID, it's really quite tricky to get instructors and get people together in groups right now. Our vehicles are undergoing their CVIs right now, so we'll be able to get the insurance on that fleet. The hydrant adapter kit that Dan recommended we use is in service. And some new equipment has arrived that we've ordered for the engines. Our membership is still 20. We'll be 21 shortly because we're having a member return that used to be on. So we're happy to have that. At the fire hall, we have that new backup generator, but we're having a problem with it right now. We're awaiting parts. That service is under warranty, so we're just waiting for that to get fixed. There's some hall lighting issues we're getting some quotes for that right now. Our occupational health and safety is meeting again, and there are no reports from them, no issues right now. In our public relations portion and events, we did have a couple of members lay wreaths at Remembrance Day in November. And we had one member out in Cumberland to lay a wreath out there. Other than that, we're planning a hamper drive this month. That'll be in next month's report, I guess, but we're gonna try and get something together to drive through the community and do that. And that's pretty much it. Just in closing, I'd just really like to thank Janice for her invaluable support that she's provided me as a fire chief, and being available for consultation pretty much all hours of the day, any day of the week. So I thank her for that. And that's my report.
Thank you, Chief Ham. Any questions from the board or from administration for this report?
Question.
Yes, Eve, please.
Ian, you referred to a committee meeting about the new fire truck. Which committee is that?
That's the committee that was struck with myself, Janice, Ted, and Rick at the direction of the board for the to build the referral or the RFP process.
The new fire committee that we voted on while I was, or is there one prior to that?
It's not the board fire committee. It's just it was struck specifically for the RFP for the engine 25, the replacement.
Okay,
It would be a select committee, Eve, as opposed to the standing committee.
okay, thanks.
Susanna, any questions?
Nope.
Okay. Motion to adopt the Union Bay Fire and Rescue monthly report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Ian, yes. Okay, next report is the Union Bay Public Works report. Over to Public Works Superintendent McGill.
Thanks, Ian. Good afternoon, everybody. Mine's really quite short, but I would like to start with a couple of just little edits. And I noticed that when I reread it for probably my third time that I had the November treated volume wrong. So we were at 15,402 cubic meters for all of November, which on, I think the report that everyone sees is says something about September and October. So just wanted to set that straight. But I'm pretty sure everybody has the report. Is that correct, Janice? Yeah. So basically, I'll talk a little bit about the water treatment plant shutdown. It went really well. It's the first time it's been shut down, completely drained, cleaned, disinfected, and put back in service all within 10 hours. Obviously, we do this when we have low flows, which we are at now. So that went really well. We do have a problem with our streaming current monitor that has been sent back to Hawk. It is under warranty, and it'll be probably a month before we see that again. In the water distribution system, we had 2 leaks on McLeod, one on McLeod, one on Horn. And then on the weekend, we had a very large emergency repair at the Highwayman pub. And in one night, it went through 400 cubic meters of water. So it was fixed within 24 hours. Obviously had to bring in a little bit extra help to get that done by Ridgeline. So I'd like to thank them for showing up in an emergency notice. Langley Lake's doing very well. As you can see in the stats, the turbidity coming in is at 2.09, which has been pretty consistent for the last couple months. Obviously, without the filter plant, we'd be on a boil advisory, so that's great. Kate and I have wrote some exams in Nanaimo. We're still waiting to get our results. All our safety meetings are held monthly. Obviously, with the new COVID stuff that's come up in the last couple of weeks, everybody's wearing masks, and there is only one person in the plant every day. So 5 days a week, we have one person that runs the plant, and basically we're social distanced. And if there is a possibility of, 2 people in the plant, obviously we're wearing masks and disinfecting everything. So basically things are pretty normal for December. But yeah, that pretty much concludes the report.
Thank you, Dan. Any questions for Dan?
Yeah, I have a question. You mentioned wearing a mask and only one person in the plant at a time. Wouldn't you want to be continuing to wear a mask even if there's not a second person, given that it's a water treatment plant? Just asking.
It's an interesting question. What would I'm not sure what the mask would do if there's no one there to to breathe on, or
Well, you're breathing on equipment.
yes, and we do wipe down all railings, all doorknobs.
No,
Persons, our protocols are written. They're
Right.
at the office. So when a
I guess
person,
what I'm saying is people can be asymptomatic and still spread COVID. So there's nothing to say staff couldn't be.
yes, yeah. So we wipe down and disinfect every touch point in that plant at the start of every shift.
Okay.
So
Is it,
I understand what you're saying. Yes, I guess the person, it could be possibly a better measure, but the way what we understand is that if you're working in an office and you're working alone, you do not have to have a mask on. We're taking the same approach with the large treatment plant that we're running.
I interpreted the question to be, and Susanna, you can correct me if this is a part of it or not, but if it isn't, it's my question too, then is there any risk to transmitting COVID via the water supply?
Absolutely not.
I think it was a question that I was positive that would be the answer, but I thought it was a question worth asking.
It's a good question. Obviously, you've seen our results. I also sent along our report to the Ministry of Health, and we have natural viruses and bacteria in the water to begin with. So when that water leaves that plant, it is in absolute safe drinking standards. So anything that could be added at the plant would be dealt with in the finished water.
Thank you for that
So,
answer. Appreciate it.
I'm sorry, I have an additional response to that. We know that they're testing COVID, for example, in sewage systems. That's one measure actually to see how widespread the infection rate is. So to guarantee that, I don't think we can guarantee that it's a virus. It goes through. It goes from person to person. It's airborne. It's in water droplets. It shows up in sewage treatment. I don't think I would be cautious as a water superintendent before I say guarantee there's no COVID virus in our water. I don't know that anybody can guarantee that. Is all I'm cautious of.
So we test every week for viruses and bacteria. All our samples have been negative.
And that's through Vancouver Island Health, correct?
Yeah, we don't actually test for viruses. Those tests are extremely expensive.
We test for total and fecal coliforms. Those are the indicators for bacteria and viruses. Yes.
So I guess the thought here would be, are we following best practices and
Right.
and the advice and guidance of Island Health with respect to masks in the water treatment plant?
We are, yes. I have not seen any data at all from COVID being transferred from a water treatment plant to a community.
Okay. Any other questions, Susanna? Any follow-up?
No comment.
Eve, any questions?
Nope.
Okay. Just one maybe curiosity question for me would be that monitor that is down for repairs or warranty repairs.
Yes.
Does it being out of service affect create any risk with respect to the plant?
No, basically what it is, it's a streaming current monitor, and it basically does auto dosing for us. And it's just the motor and the impeller that have burned up. So basically what it's not doing is auto dosing. However, our water is so consistent that we've been running the same dose now for well over 2 months. So none of our parameters have changed, and it's basically, it was an add-on when they put it in, kind of like here's an extra, I don't know how to say it, but an extra tool you could use to help streamline your plant. So basically, we're running at the same dosages that we've been running now for, before the rain, basically. So all our dosages are the same.
Okay, and you're confident?
Yes, very confident. The effluent water is still at 0.03 NTU turbidity. Our chlorine hasn't changed much at all. It's gone up a little bit when we did the flushing just to get a good residual flush through the system. That's returning to normal. pH has been exactly the same. If there is any problems with the dosing, we would see either decrease in chlorine or decrease in pH or increase in our effluent turbidity, and none of that's happened.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So are there any further questions? Motion to adopt the Public Works report.
Second.
All in favor? Eve is
Yes.
yes. Susanna's yes. Ian is yes. Okay. Next item on the agenda is under new business, and it's the conversion resolution, and it has 3 parts. The first portion is to make a motion to with respect to the results of the referendum. So if I can read the motion, have it seconded, and then we can have discussion around it. The motion is, be it resolved that in light of 72% of landowners, and I'm going to change the wording of this. Be it resolved that in light of 72% of ballots cast being in favor of dissolving the Union Bay Improvement District and converting to the Comox Valley Regional District service areas in the referendum poll on November 28, 2020, the UBID Board of Trustees supports the decision of the landowners and is in favor of conversion to CVRD service areas as soon as practicable. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? My only discussion is that once approved, if we approve it, it would need to be communicated to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs via letter, and I would take care of doing that once it was approved. So if there's no further discussion, can we vote on this resolution? All in favor?
Aye.
I don't know where I went, but I disappeared, but I'm here.
Okay, we hear you.
Okay.
And I am in favor. So this motion is passed. The next motion has to do with a follow-on committee to support the conversion efforts. And the motion is that a committee be appointed to work with CVRD during the period leading up to conversion and for a period of 6 months after conversion, pending agreement to its constitution by CVRD. The committee shall consist of the following members: A, Chair of the UBID Board of Trustees; B, Interim Administrator of UBID; C, a second trustee of UBID; and D, one landowner with strong preference for someone who has previously served on the Board of Trustees. Landowners will be invited to express interest in this position, and the board shall appoint one such applicant. So that's the motion. Second.
I'll second that motion.
Welcome, Ted. Thank you for finding your way in.
I had a glitch and finally managed in my feeble way to get it back.
Thank you for coming. Okay, so as I made the motion, I will just give a little bit of background to this in that on the 30th of November, we had a meeting of the remainder of the governance study working committee group. And I say remainder in that the work of Urban Systems, who did the study, was finished and they had dropped off the group. And we started talking about next steps, and this committee was brought up. We spoke about this at our COW meeting last week, and I took away the responsibility to draft a motion for debate. And I recognize that there are several ways we could go about this, and we can talk about those. In doing this, I spoke with our interim administrator, Gary, And he and I crafted this together as an approach moving forward. And I have run it by CVRD, and they seem in the early going here to be supportive of that as an approach. But that said, I will now turn this over to other trustees for comments. So Ted, let's start with you. You haven't had a chance to speak so far.
Well, I agree with the statement that you wrote. It's a case of filling a position, and I think we should go ahead with it. I have no objection at all. This is a transition period, and there'll be a number of things that we need to do during that time. So I'm for this.
Okay. Thank you. Eve?
I'm for it. The question I had was maybe didn't hear it perfectly, but so the person, is it one person you're taking from the public who you want to have previous board experience, or a person with previous board experience and another general landowner?
The proposal is one person who is who is not on the board, who is a landowner who has previous board experience.
Oh, so just the one person.
Yeah, and so it's one person with a preference towards the board experience.
Okay, thanks.
Susanna?
Okay. I was just trying to move my router. Yes, I'm in favor. I'm not any better. Why isn't my picture showing? Okay, anyway, I'm fine with the motion. I'm in favor.
Okay. Any other conversation, or should we just move to vote? Okay, all in favor? Ted?
I'm in favor, yes.
Eve?
Yes.
Susanna?
Yes.
Ian, yes. Motion number 3. So with the resignation of Trustee France and, the impending end of Trustee Haraldson's term in April, we are faced with the potential for having an election. And that election, if we didn't have it and nothing else changed, would be to leave us with 3 trustees, where 1 being missing would mean we don't have a quorum. So hence I went to the ministry and had a suggestion given to us, and I'll read this motion so that we can have it on the table, seconded it, and talk about it. So in light of the impending conversion to CVRD in July, the resignation of Trustee France, and the current need to hold an election for 1 trustee prior to end of April 2021 at a cost of approximately $6,000, the board accepts the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing proposal to reduce the size of the UBID board to 3 trustees on April 30th, 2021, in order to avoid holding an election.
Second.
Okay, so discussion. I'll start with Eve this time.
Oh, I support that.
Susanna.
In the interest of time, I support that as well.
Okay, no further comment there. Ted.
Yes, we're coming to the end where we're going to be switching over, and if we could save $6,000 and run it with 3 trustees, I have no problem.
I forget who brought this up, but it was such a good idea that we try not to have an election in April, given that it would really only be for 2 more months. And the savings of $6,000 is important, and we'll see that as we talk about budget. But also saving the public from having to venture out on what might be uncertain COVID times again is at least of the same value. So I'm very much in support of this as well. We end up with only 3 voices at that point in time, but the voices that what they'll need to be cognizant of is stewarding the process properly and ensuring communication is at the best possible level for landowners to understand what's going on. So that's my final comment. Is if anybody else would like to make a comment, again, great. Otherwise, let's move to a vote. Okay. All in favor of this motion?
Yes.
Yes. Susanna?
Yes.
And Ted?
Yes.
Ian? Yes. Susanna, your picture is back.
No, it's amazing.
All right, so that motion is complete. So we have done the in-camera portion of the meeting, and now we do go to continuation of new business and the budget. And step one is the final review of public works expenditures and then overall revenues. And so Janice, I'll turn this back to you and to Graham and let you drive through how you want to do this.
So I have made Graham the host so he can share his screen.
Uh-huh.
And I'll unmute myself at the same time. Okay, so I think Janice worked with Dan to sort of finalize some numbers on the wage side of things within the public works. So the amounts that you see here show a reduction from for public works than what was there previously. So the number's gone down, and we again took into account the change in the administration staff with a contracted administrator taking over. So that's reflected in the cost. So these are all the costs for changes to labors that's been reflected in these amounts here. We made some small other little changes. I think we felt that fuel's a little low, so we bumped that up and repairs up. So I think the expenditures we feel pretty comfortable with, unless there's any questions in regards to the expenditures. I just want to talk about the expenditures before we jump into the revenue side of things.
Graham?
Yep.
So I'm looking at public works here. I'm presuming the administrative salaries were appropriately adjusted
Yes.
given this new contract and all those sorts of
Yep.
things, right? Yep.
That's been reflected with these numbers.
And were there any changes made to anything else like on-call costs, those sorts of things?
Yes, we reduced that down to 500 per week. It was previously 600.
And carried on straight through,
Yep.
through to December, right? Okay.
Yep. So like, for example, when we looked at this at the COW meeting, total wages for public works was 240. So now it's 197. So some substantial reductions there.
Because of the maternity leave, and that's it, or?
That was, that and the on-call piece.
Only on call, okay. It's less on call because there's less employees?
No, it's just a recalculation.
Oh, okay. What's the column to the right of this column we're on?
Oh, sorry. I should put that on. So the first column, proposed budget, last year's budget.
So it's 2020 budget. Okay.
Right, thank you.
So if you actually look at total expenditures, the budget for 2021 is actually less than the total expenditures that were in the budget for 2020.
Okay, that's good news.
Even though our biggest cost went up. Nice work. How did that happen? But anyway.
Well, the wages are pretty comparable, but just a completely different staff structure in 2020's budget.
Right.
I'm wondering where has it gone down? Because when I look at remuneration, for example, payroll expenses, every line looks like it's equal or higher. Yet the sum is lower. So do we have a problem?
It's just how I did it. Like so this is a gross up of total I'm in, and this is a transfer out.
Oh, that's an out. Okay.
That's an out. And that's being transferred over into fire. Just before, this is a blended number, and this is strictly, yeah. So really, the difference is 151 there, and your min the current year is actually would be just 100 or whatever, right? Those two numbers.
That's
So that's the big reduction right there, right?
got it. Just trying to keep us on our toes there, Graham.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We need it.
So that's the expenses. I just want to pull up before we actually go to the rate structure and just sort of look at the revenue side of things. You can see the actual budgeted water tolls for 2020 were 562,000, right? And we've gone through how that budget amount is not going to be a reality, because when we do our projection, we're getting it to be about 452. So it is drastically we're underutilizing our water tolls. So that was the driver of why expenses have gone up a bit because of the new water treatment plant. But the real issue with the budget was that the rate structure did not generate the type of revenue that was built into the budget for 2020.
Okay. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, so because when we look at the rates, you'll see large increases in the rates, but it's actually pretty close to what was in the budget last year, just that that rate structure does not generate that level of income.
Oh, it's like 10,000 difference.
Well, yeah, so we're increasing our budgeted revenue by $10,000, but our rates actually have to go up substantially more to generate that $10,000, even though it's only a small increase, just that the rate structure from 2020 just did not generate that kind of, doesn't generate that 562,000 of revenue. It's going to generate 452,000. So it's a $110,000 shortfall there.
There's one other thing that these parcel taxes that have been uncollected is a fair amount of money, and unfortunately they still haven't been collected. So what happened there?
So this budget doesn't take any of that into account. It's going
That's
to assume
right.
that the district's going to recoup those amounts eventually somehow. You know, you
Right.
can always go to the property sales and stuff like that. So we have not put any allowances for any parcel tax.
Right. Okay.
And they're already included in the calculation of the surplus or deficit from last year. They've been counted as revenue.
Yeah.
They just haven't yet been collected.
Okay, I understand that.
Okay, so I'll jump into the actual rate structure that balances this. So actually, I'll just, before we go in here at the bottom, so you can see a surplus of $83,000 from operating. but we have 10,000 in sort of the min section that doesn't have any revenue, so that's covering that off. And then this budget includes a $73,000 transfer to property tax. I mean, transfer to the capital reserves. That $73,000 is calculated to be the difference between the property tax revenue and the loan, less the loan payments. So that's what's being transferred to the capital reserves.
For clarity, the parcel tax excess over the loan payments. I think you said property tax, and I just want to make sure we're
Oh yeah, sorry, parcel
clear
tax.
for those
Yeah.
in the public
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
listening as well.
Okay.
So that's, you know, from the perspective of our, and I know we've said this before, first off, I appreciate the work that everybody's done to find ways to reduce these costs. It was really necessary given the, I guess, miscalculation in rates last year, and therefore, you know, causing a greater increase this year than we would normally have liked to have seen. That said, I also feel that, you know, we are, I'm going to say this right, with the age of our water system, our distribution system, we are taking a risk by contributing a small amount to the reserve fund. Just my opinion. I'd love to see if other trustees have anything to say about that.
We don't have any other pot of money to put into the reserve fund, do we?
Not at present.
Yeah. No, it's extremely concerning how little. So if I understand correctly, the parcel taxes are basically funding the loan, which is around $17,000 a month, correct? So that leaves very little to put into a pot for future infrastructure. And you're absolutely right. Now, I'm hoping, that's one of the reasons why conversion was broached, that we would be entitled to grants, infrastructure grants, as well as municipal financing, including the loan that we currently have will be transferred over. But I'm very concerned about a clear need for improving our existing infrastructure, serving the needs of our community, and it's a growing community. However, there's only so much burden that 790, you know, so, but we can't print money.
Question,
Please, Eve.
capital expenditure charges, I might have asked this, you haven't budgeted that we would get anything this coming year, next year?
Correct. And the reason why I did that, because if you receive those monies, you need to move those amounts into that reserve fund for CEC. You need to move that into CEC reserves. So it's a money that comes in, but it's not to be offsetting against your operating costs, right? So I'm trying to just get at the operating costs here, because what we actually get for you get for those is really beyond your control too, right? Someone applies and are they eligible and all that. So it's something beyond your control as well too. So you put amount in, like you see how we have this transfers out here, you need to transfer it out here for those amounts you put in. So I just didn't put one in.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
This is, you know, indicative of, you know, why we probably need a more in-depth planning exercise as well, in that what we're doing now is a profit and loss, if you will, income statement version of a plan versus a more of a 5-year balance sheet, reserve fund, capital expenditure type plan as well, which we're actually remiss in. We should have one of those. And I think that's probably something that would be worthwhile us preparing prior to conversion, so that we express ourselves as a community as to how we see that going.
Mhm.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ted.
Like regarding the development of Union Bay Estates and the long-going concerns over that, there was a fair amount of money that would have came into the improvement district, but the development has not moved forward. But converting over to the regional district, eventually those permits will be let and that money will move forward, which will help out at a later date. That's just the way that it's going to have to be.
And I note that when that happens too, that there will be increased demand and increased need for expenditures to create, to double the size of our plant as we bring more units on board. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think our plant is structured for 100 additional homes, and then we need to move to the next staff unit after that.
That's correct. And under the water agreement, the Union Bay Estates had to turn around and pay that to be done. That was also in the water agreement, and I imagine that'll be transferred to the regional district.
May I just add to that?
Yes.
The reference that Trustee Harrelson just made was the 2017 water infrastructure agreement references the developer paying for the second DAF, not, that cost is relatively small. Another issue that needs to be discussed is that the current plant was built knowing that it was going to build out for the existing community, and that there was really only room for a few more homes. But that was all that we could bear in terms of cost. It has also become very clear, although we knew this, our engineers told us this, that the elevation of our current plant is not high enough to reach up higher level properties. And those are contained within Union Bay Estates as well as other areas. So we may well have a future expense of not only a second DAF, like the unit, but also a need for a plant at a higher location, which would include room for settling ponds, as well as the washroom and storage that was missing in our current plant. So the long and the short of it is we have much more infrastructure to pay for. And CECs are not going to cover it.
I feel like we're drifting off our topic here of working on the 2021 budget, and I also don't want to drift into discussions that aren't supported by documentation right now. And if we do need to have this discussion going forward. But I'd like it to be supported and everybody prepared with all of the facts, like a copy of the water infrastructure agreement and those sorts of things, so we can really see what happens next.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
And add a small amount to that and just carry on with this meeting is DAF plants run $500,000. That's not a small item. And also those agreements also included another water tower on the same location that is already prepared for that in the future. It's as far as other plants and all the rest of it, that's down in the future as development goes ahead within the Union Bay area. So it's really a non-issue at this time.
Yeah. So we've got other items coming up on this agenda, such as a referral for a new development not part of Union Bay Estates. And some of this we'll bring our Public Works Superintendent in to comment on. But I'd like us not to speculate on what might need to be built depending on what gets built where until we have the reports. And speculate, I'm sorry, that's not I don't mean that, Susanna, is just saying that you're speculating.
No, I'm not speculating.
Yeah. Okay, so can we move to rates? Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah, just one question, Ian, about CECs. I don't know if you've done a review last year or this last year, 2020, on the CEC rate and whether it is going to be reviewed and raised.
I think when we spoke about this at our CAL meeting, we said, let's defer that until the January meeting. That and B properties, and whether we continue to tax B parcels at the same zero rate as we have, given that there's a greater value generated now by having this water plant.
Okay, thanks.
So to make the budget balance, these are the rates that we've used. So the base rate goes up to 108 per 2-month period. So that's a 20% increase. Then all the sort of the excess rates, they've been kind of tried to do sort of around 25%, you know, keeping round numbers in place there. So you can see that the different rates, so excess level 1 would go to 140, excess 2 to 190, excess 3 to 250, and everything above would be 375, and commercial would be 160 per cubic meter. So those are quite substantial rate increases. I understand that, and I think the board understands that. And I said, like, the issue is this, the rate structure from last year are substantially short in the amount of money that they need to generate for the improvement district.
Is that because usage was not what they budgeted for, or simply because they didn't raise them high enough?
I really can't comment on how that was the thought process that was behind that. Just when you review the math, it just doesn't work. So, so like when we went through that or when we had the CAL meeting, when we went through actual 2020 usage, only is 110,000 less than what the budget revenue would be for water rates.
Wow.
My interpretation of that was that it was simplistically budgeted, that the budget specified an average revenue of $135 every 2 months per property. And then we set the base toll at 90, which would then mean that we were expecting $45 in excess use from every property every 2 months. And so we budgeted for way higher usage than we actually got.
Okay, thanks. Right.
And this method is now basing our budgeting off actual usage. And if the pattern of usage, and of course we're at, you know, there's variables in this we're not in control of, like weather, and how do people react to higher rates and water conservation. All those things are variables we're not in control of, but at least this budget is built in a more detailed fashion using historical consumption rates.
And we used 95% of 2019 actual usage. And the reason for that was, well, we don't have a full year of 2020. And it actually looked like 2020 usage is actually less than 2019. So that's why we use that 95% usage to come up as an estimate.
Mm-hmm.
So any further questions? These are the rates that are proposed, which essentially it's a 20% increase in base rate, and approximately that it looks like in some of the lower excess ranges. It went from 111, like excess 1 in 2020 was 111 per cubic meter. excess two.
These are all the increase, the actual percentage increases right here.
Thank you.
For the
So yeah, we
benefit,
tried to make them equal across, just to keep the same sort of structure.
So this under units, actual 95% of 2019, 690 is the amount of houses or
Yeah, so that number is not 95%. That's the actual number of units now. So
And
that's the
what's
base
the-
rate.
what's the numbers under that? 26,945.
So this is actual it's 95% of the cubic meters that were consumed in the different.
in excess one category.
Yeah.
So how can excess 4 category be more than excess 2 and excess 3?
Because excess 4 is anything above 3. Once you get to 3, then it goes on for infinitely kind of idea, where each of the other excess are a range, the smaller range. So you don't have that range effect for 3, or for I'm calling it 4.
I see. Okay.
So like for excess 1, it's 21 meters to 50 meters, and it's 50 meters to 75, 70 to 100, then everything above 100.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Don't fill your swimming pool.
So the one area of rates that isn't addressed here, and I don't know how, maybe Janice can answer this, is how many properties do we have that are non-metered? Is it significant?
Yep. And don't forget, we also have some homes that their water's turned off. So they do not get charged. You know, they don't live in it, it's empty. So there's a bunch of variables as to why not everybody gets charged.
So that 690 is not taking that into consideration?
That's an actual.
So so we have above that aren't hooked up.
Or yeah, they're turned off, or yeah.
Okay.
So the reason I asked that question is that, we haven't contemplated the rates that we would set for non-metered properties. And last year, the non-metered single-family residential property paid simply the flat rate, the $90, which means that any excess usage they got for free. And, for commercial properties, I believe it was slightly different. Commercial properties paid a $90 base rate when metered and $140 when not metered. So I'm just wondering if we need to discuss those as well.
we certainly do. I didn't realize anybody was receiving water and not being metered.
Me neither.
Yeah.
So
Explain
that's
that
not
again. Can you explain that again?
Who are you speaking to, Janice?
You, sorry.
So our bylaw last year set rates for non-metered rates. The following tolls are hereby fixed and made payable by all owners of property in the district which do not have a water meter. And for each single family residential property, a bi-monthly toll of $90, which is the same as the base rate for a metered property. That doesn't seem fair.
no.
Annie, is that correct that we have non-metered water users?
Incorrect.
Yeah, I thought so too.
So there are none?
Every house that has a water meter.
Correct.
And how about commercial properties?
Every single place that has a water service has a water meter.
And they may have turned it off because they're away or the house is empty, but they're not getting water unless they're paying.
That's correct.
So we set rates last year for a non-existent circumstance. Is that kind of what we're saying? And should we anticipate that we would ever have a connection that didn't have a meter?
No.
No.
So do we need to, in our new bylaw, do we need to remove that section?
Yes.
I don't see where that is, so sorry.
It's section 8 of your
I see it. Thank you.
suggested bylaw 282.
Yeah, that is not the way it is.
Well, I'm a bit confused because when Ian first asked the question about these particular properties, you said there were lots, Janice.
No, there's lots that are not connected to the system, but they're not getting water.
Okay.
And so the lots that are not connected to the system are not included in the 690.
Correct.
We have 690 paying properties now.
Yeah.
Okay. So we do not need to discuss non-metered rates. We only need to discuss these metered rates as presented. And I'd like to know if there's any further discussion on this or whether we should be voting to approve the budget as presented.
I second the motion to approve the budget as presented.
And would anybody have any further comments on this before we vote on it?
I would just like to say, for the benefit of Ted, who was not at our very, very long cow meeting, that this budget is a vast improvement over the initial one that we were looking at and feeling very discouraged about. So Ted, that's for your benefit. Just these numbers are much better than the first set.
Well, I knew there was going to be an increase. You're saying up to 30%, which is pretty high. If it's going to be 20%, I can understand it with a water treatment plant and with that changeover. The only way that we can generate revenue basically is by increasing our water tolls. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so Eve, any further comment on this?
No, thanks.
Susanna?
No, thank you.
All in favor of approving this budget as presented?
Yes.
Yes.
Susanna? Yes. Ted?
Yes.
Yes.
Ian? Yes. Okay, again to Graham and Janice and Dan and Ian Ham, everybody that contributed to this process, thank you for your good work on it. And thank you for your tolerance of us coming back to you continuously to try to find ways to drive these rates down. And you've done a remarkable job. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So the next item, and bear with me on this, is I'm going to have to do this on the fly. We're having a reading of the bylaws, which means we'll need first and second readings. First reading is just to propose not to debate it, vote on it as a first reading, and then there'll be a second reading that will happen, which will be for us then to debate and make changes and approve if necessary. For the first reading of the bylaw, amending bylaw 282, amending bylaw 281, water tolls and other charges 2021, a bylaw to amend bylaw 281 being the water tolls and other charges 2020. The trustees of Union Bay Improvement District enact as follows, that the Improvement District's bylaw number 282 passed by the trustees on the 10th day, sorry, that should read that bylaw 281. Nope, sorry, 282. Passed by the trustees on the 10th day of December 2020 is hereby amended by, there's something wrong there, but I'll come along with it. Amended by revising section 6, 8, and 9, and to add section 22 below. So metered rates, section 6, the following tolls are hereby fixed and made payable by all owners of residential and commercial property as applicable in the district which has a water meter at the commencement of a billing period. Residential rates, the base rate, including up to 20 cubic meters of water, $108 bi-monthly. Excess rate number 1, which is for consumption 21 cubic meters to 50 cubic meters, $1.40 per cubic meter. Excess rate 2, which is for consumption 51 cubic meters to 75 cubic meters, a total of $1.90 per cubic meter. Excess rate 3, which is for consumption 76 cubic meters to 100 cubic meters, $2.50 per cubic meter. Excess rate over 3, 101 cubic meters or greater, $3.75 per cubic meter. Commercial rates, a base rate of $108. Water usage rate, water usage rate $1.60 per cubic meter. There is no base amount included in the base rate there, or no base consumption. Time of payment, section 9, billing occurs bi-monthly with all tolls and charges due and payable within 15 business days of the billing date or on the due date stated on the water toll invoice for the period which the tolls and charges were levied. Section 22, this bylaw will take effect January 1, 2021. Item 2, this bylaw may be cited as the bylaw number 282, amending bylaw number 281, water tolls and other charges 2020. So first reading of that bylaw, motion to accept, seconding of the reading of the bylaw. We need a seconder, yeah. And there's no debate now, so all in favor of that first reading?
Yes.
Yeah, structure, do all the things we need to do. Bylaw number 282, amending bylaw number 281, water tolls and other charges 2021. A bylaw to amend bylaw number 281 being the water tolls and other charges 2020. The trustees of the Union Bay Improvement District enact as follows: that the Improvement District's bylaw number 282 passed by the trustees on the 10th day of December 2020 is hereby amended by revising sections 6, 8, and 9 to add section 22 below. Metered rates, section 6. The following tolls are hereby fixed and made payable by all owners of residential and commercial property as applicable in the district, which has a water meter, and at the commencement of a billing period, residential rates, base rate up, including up to 20 cubic meters of consumption, $108 bi-monthly. Excess rate number 1 for consumption between 21 cubic meters and 50 cubic meters, $1.40 per cubic meter. Excess rate number 2 for consumption between 51 cubic meters and 75 cubic meters, $1.90 per cubic meter. Excess rate number 3 for consumption 76 cubic meters to 100 cubic meters, $2.50 per cubic meter. Excess rate over excess rate 3, 100 cubic meters and above, $3.75 per cubic meter. Commercial rates, the base rate with including zero consumption, $108 bi-monthly. Water usage rate for all consumption, $1.60 per cubic meter. Non-metered rates, in section 8, the following tolls are hereby fixed and made payable by all owners of property in the district who do not have a water meter. These tolls have not been, these tolls are blank in here, but it says for each single family residential property, nil. For the Union Bay Beautification Boulevard, nil. For each commercial property, there's nothing stated. For the Union Bay Improvement District, nil. Time of payment, billing occurs bi-monthly with all tolls and charges due and payable within 15 business days of the billing date or on the due date stated on the water toll invoice for the period for which the tolls and charges were levied. 22, this bylaw will take effect January 1st, 2021. This bylaw may be cited as the bylaw number 282, amending bylaw number 281, water tolls and other charges 2020. So need a seconder for that reading of the bylaw.
Second.
Okay, so discussion, changes,
Wanted to
all
make
those
a
sorts of
point.
things. What's
In
that?
should it not say water tolls and other charges 2021?
Under where, sorry?
Section 2 on page 2. This bylaw may be cited as bylaw number 282, amending,
81.
oh no, maybe
20
that's correct. But shouldn't it say another charges 20?
No, it should say 2021.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. I can change it.
I have changed it here for in case we need another reading of this. The other thing that I wonder about is this should read, that says that in section 1 above, that the improvement district's bylaw number 281 passed by the trustees on what day of 2019? Because it's what's
Got that.
17th of October, 2019.
December 19th. Yep.
Is that what it was?
Yep. 2019.
Okay. And then the other piece that seems to need to change is that in section 8 on non-metered rates, we would need to remove lines A for each single family residential property, because there will not be non-metered single family residential properties, and remove line C
Okay.
for each commercial property.
Okay.
Anybody else see anything that needs to change, anything that needs to be discussed?
Regarding these raw lots that don't have water, etc. I guess when the time comes that they are built on, then the CECs will be collected, as well as meter, etc. Until then, are they just paying the frontage tax and that's it? Those properties?
So the answer is that lots that have not paid their CEC are not paying parcel taxes either. So we can talk about that when we talk about the parcel taxes bylaw. And then we've also talked about that in our cow meeting, that we would like to revisit the way we calculate, the way we calculate parcel taxes for those that have not yet paid their CEC.
And I was thinking that there should be a parcel tax regarding those properties. There's a line running across, even though they're not connected.
So let's deal with that under the parcel taxes bylaw, which is next.
Okay.
Any other comments from anybody? Would you like me to read it with these changes, or do we understand the changes that were made really to section 1 to change the date on the bylaw when last year's bylaw was being cited? We've removed the references to non-metered single family and commercial properties, and we've changed the citation in section 2 to be 2021 instead of 2020.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's good.
Good.
Gary, would you advise me read it again, or do you think we're good? We're good?
I think we're good, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, so all in favor of this bylaw?
Yay.
EVA, Susanna?
Yes.
Yes. Ted?
Yes.
Ian? Yes. Okay. So now, oh, I need to move on. That's last year's. I can move that one out of the way. Okay, so the next bylaw that we need to talk about is with respect to parcel taxes. And so this is bylaw number 285, taxation bylaw 2021. A bylaw for so reading number 1, to introduce the bylaw, a bylaw for imposing taxes upon lands in the district and to provide for imposing a percentage addition to encourage prompt payment thereof. The trustees of the Union Bay Improvement District enact as follows. 1, for the year 2021, there is hereby levied the following taxes. Janice, can I have the number, please? 390, right?
Correct.
Is that what we're still saying? Okay.
Yeah.
So for the year 2021, there's hereby levied the following taxes. A parcel tax or a tax of $390 on all parcels of land classified into Group A. And B, a tax of $0 on all parcels of land classified into Group B. 2, the first installment of $195
Correct.
shall be due and payable on or before the second day of March 2021. The second installment of $195 shall be due and payable on the 31st day of August 2021. A percentage addition of 10% or 10% of the amount thereof shall be added to all taxes remaining unpaid after the said dates. 3, in addition, taxes remaining unpaid on the first day of March next following the date upon which taxes are levied shall bear interest at the rate prescribed by the Lieutenant Governor in Council under the Taxation (Rural Area) Act as set out under Section 717 of the Local Government Act. 4, this bylaw may be cited as the Taxation Bylaw 2021. So that's first reading. Motion to accept that reading, or sorry, second that.
Second.
All in favor of this bylaw first reading?
In favor.
In favor.
Susanna?